I think the general attitude is
controlled
that
chaos.
it will all work out, right? And as we're trying to pull out, and there's just thousands of cars, and our driver just pulls out, bikes, cars, pedestrians, and he just pulls out, and no one got hit, no cars got hit. And one time we were going down the road, we're doing, 35 miles an hour, and these two women are slowly crossing the street, and we're approaching them. They're not walking faster. The driver isn't driving slower. It's just this inherent belief that it's all going to work out. You don't need to get all upset. Now, I have found that there are places like India where there's only so many times that you can go before you pass out.
Welcome to the Where Have You Been podcast. I'm your host, Bill Ream, and each week on the pod, I have conversations with incredible guests from all walks of life. Expect to hear funny, crazy, emotional, life-changing, and even sometimes life-threatening stories and experiences that will entertain and inspire you. As always, I appreciate your likes, subscriptions, ratings, and reviews wherever you are listening. It doesn't sound like much, but it truly helps the pod get to the ears of more people who may enjoy it. And check out the website, whybpodcast.com, for links to the socials where you can find pictures from the guests and their stories, and also buy merch if you're so inclined. Now let's get to this week's episode. Thank you for being here. Welcome back into another episode of the Where Have You Been podcast. Of course, as always, I'm your host, Bill Ream, and, everyone gets sick of it. I say it every time, and people getting sick of me saying that you're going to get sick of me saying this, but I have another fantastic guest today, and this time I have someone who I don't think he can control himself. This is going to be the longest title of an episode that I've ever had, I'm pretty sure, because I have TV and podcast host, best-selling author, licensed professional clinical counselor, and more, I'm sure. I have Zander on the show today, and as I like to do, because Zander knows himself better than anyone, if you don't mind, Zander, if you would introduce yourself to our listeners, who are you? And welcome.
Thank you. I am Zander Sprague. As you said, I'm a podcast host, TV host, licensed professional clinical counselor, and lucky for me, I am also fortunate to have been a person who's traveled to many places in the world. And I love getting to talk about the epic destinations that I've seen to share it with other people.
And I love to hear those stories of epic places and adventures that you've had. So that's awesome. Would you mind telling our listeners about, let's start with what you're doing. Let's start with the podcasting, the TV stuff that you're doing.
Sure.
And where can they find you?
Absolutely. So I wrote a best-selling book called Epic Begins with One Step Forward, which is a book about encouraging people to do those epic things that we dream of doing. And for a lot of people, it's, I've always dreamed of going to Australia or China or Europe. And I'm all about how to set that up and make these epic dreams come true. The podcast and the TV show have the same name. And really the idea behind that is I want to highlight epic things that people are doing in their personal life and in business to bring a little positivity to the world. William, there's just so many, we turn on the news, there's so much sort of fire, flood, and blood. And I'm just trying to add some positivity because there's so much good out there. There's so much epic, and I just want to share it.
Please call me Bill.
Fine.
Yeah, no, it's all good. And I got to fix that in here. But anyways, how did this all come about for you? Was it through doing like the counseling type of stuff that kind of led you to this path with doing the podcasting and the TV and the author and the, book writing, or kind of just always been a passion for you?
Well, the funny thing is I've written 3 books, and truth be told, I'm a talker, not a typer. And so it honestly blows my mind that I've written 1 book, never mind 3. And the first 2 books came about through a personal experience. Years ago, my older sister was murdered. And after that happened, I discovered that there was really very little about loss of a sibling. So I wrote a book about my experience of losing my sister. I got 5 of my friends who'd lost siblings to answer some questions for me. And that's been part of the work I've been doing for the last 15 plus years, is advocating for siblings and working with other sibling survivors. But then the whole EPIC thing came about because to become a licensed professional clinical counselor here in California, I needed 3,000 hours of internship. And I completed that in February of 2020, and I had all kinds of great plans. Mid-March of 2020, you might remember there was a little worldwide pandemic.
Yeah, people
kind of put
sick.
everything on hold. And as I was sitting in my house trying to figure out what my next move was, I was reflecting on things that I'd already achieved in my life. And I was like, wow, I've actually done some pretty epic things, like write best-selling books, run marathons, travel to some really incredible places. And I got thinking about, how did all of that come about? And honestly, it came about because I made the decision I wanted to do something. And then I took that first step. And what I discovered each and every time was that first step was not nearly as hard as I thought it would be. And I think that happens to a lot of people. We say, oh, someday I'll do this, or I'd love to do this. And we start to think about what's involved with that, and we get overwhelmed by the enormity of it. But my experience is, if you simply take that first step, you find, hey, that wasn't as hard as I thought. Let me take one more step. Obviously, there's got to be some organization, create some structure and stuff. But ultimately, I don't think that's as hard for people as they think, because we're all used to doing things like writing an outline for a paper or creating a shopping list or something. All of that's just creating structure to help you go do that task.
Yeah, absolutely. And first off, I know it's been 30 years, but I'm sorry for your loss. That should never happen.
Thank you so much.
But, and on a much smaller scale, I did the exact same thing, even just starting this podcast. I kicked that can down the road for years. And it just, one night, I was just like, you know what, I'm just going to take that step forward, like you said, and just did it. And once I did it, I'm not going to say it's easy, but it's, you kind of get it down and it becomes easier. And
it's not
sometimes really enjoyable. Like, I love this.
Exactly. I love doing my podcast. And those first steps of, again, just making that decision, I'm going to do a podcast. That first step isn't so hard. All right, let me do some research about where I can record my podcast. Let me look into equipment. All of that's not particularly difficult. You just start doing it.
Yeah. And just, and again, it's not just podcasting, it's life, but, just take that chance. Yeah. I've never done it before, so I'm scared because I don't know how to do it. Well, you don't know how to do anything until you research a little bit and do it. So yeah, I love that.
Here,
look, I'm asking.
Let me put it this way, make it really easy for the audience. When I got up this morning, I did not have all the answers to all of the questions that I will be asked today, but it didn't prevent me from getting up and starting my day. That's true for everyone.
Yeah. Well, and I'll be honest with you, I don't know the questions I'm going to ask you either. So we're in the same boat. Not completely, but mostly. But no, that's excellent. So let's just, before I forget or lose track, I want to allow you to put out there for me, for the listeners, where can they find your podcast? Where can they find your book? Where can they find you?
If they go to epicbegins.com, you will find everything. You'll find my book, my podcast, TV show, how to contact me. Really easy. epicbegins.com.
Excellent. And where does the TV show actually air? Where can we find that?
You can find it on my YouTube channel, and Excellent. That's youtube.com @epicbegins, all one word. And that will bring you to my YouTube channel. You'll see, all the content that I'm creating, and there is a playlist for the TV show.
That's awesome. And so I guess sort of maybe shifting gears toward travel a little bit. You've mentioned a little bit about some of the travels that you've done, but very briefly. How did and when did travel become a thing in your life? Did your family travel, or did it something that kind of evolved over time for you?
I was lucky enough that it started at a very young age. I traveled with my family. I traveled. I grew up on the East Coast, outside of Boston. I traveled to Florida. Traveled to the Bahamas, and um, then as I was growing up, I had the opportunity to take some pretty unique trips. One when I was 12, I went to the Venezuelan jungle and hiked through the jungle we hiked probably about 30 miles through the jungle.
Wow.
And then I went to the Sahara Desert in Morocco and spent time in the Sahara Desert. That was also incredible. And from there, I love getting to see new places and learn about these places and the people and what life is like.
Do you consider yourself, I mean, the first two things that you mentioned there, I mean, those are not vacations per se.
Not
Do you
really.
consider yourself an adventurer, as an adventurous person? I was going to say an adventurer, I guess.
Yeah, I like to, when I go on vacation, I don't want to just sit around, on the beach or the pool. I want to go do activities. And I tend to like the activities that may be adrenaline inducing and sometimes scare me and push my limits.
So you've done things like I'm going to guess like not hang gliding, but zip lining. Have you done like river rafting, things like that?
Yep. Zip lining, river rafting, bungee jumping,
Oh my God, no,
skydiving,
no.
African safaris.
Wow.
You
Yeah.
know,
I had an opportunity once to jump out of an airplane, and I actually was going to do it, and I had just started a job, and my dad was going, and someone else went with him too, and my boss wouldn't let me off work. I would have done it even though I'm terrified of heights. In that moment I would have done it, but I'd never do it now probably. I did zip lining though, and I actually really enjoyed that. I probably will do that again. So,
yeah, zip lining was fun. Look, here's what I can say about skydiving is I learned I first time I did it, I did a tandem jump, and for those people who don't know what that is, you're hooked to a jump master, so they've got the parachute on, and they're gonna make sure that you land safely. Um, and I jumped from 10,500 feet, had about a 5,000 foot free fall. But the thing I discovered, I learned more in the first 2 seconds of my free fall than any class in physics could ever teach me. Here's what I learned, Bill. First of all, the human eye only has depth perception to about 1,000 feet. Most of us less so, but we'll call it 1,000 feet. So when you're 10,000 feet up, you can't really tell whether you're at 10,000 or 5,000 feet. But the second and most important thing is falling is a visually stimulated sensation. So the only time I felt like falling was right as I left the airplane because I had a visual reference. After that, I did not feel like I was falling because your eye didn't have that depth perception. So it was kind of like I'm older, and being Gen X, we did crazy things like hang half our body out the back of the station wagon window as it's going down the road. So you kind of had that half your body. Well, skydiving is like that, but it's your whole body. And when I was doing it, I had seen the jump zone and we jumped. And I had a moment where I was really freaking out because I couldn't see the jump zone as I was doing 100, as I was doing like 90 miles an hour. And I was like, oh my God, what am I going to do? Where's the jump zone? What I didn't realize is once you pull that parachute, I had like 5 minutes, and it went from being like complete sensory overload to wonderfully peaceful and quiet and just a gentle breeze as you're floating in the air.
wow. I guess I kind of get it. Like now that when you put it that way, like I guess I could understand, you're going down in your mind. But I guess I could see that because you don't really see the Earth getting closer to you until you get closer to it, I guess. So
Yeah. Like honestly, you just don't. And even if in a physics class they had told me that, until you experience some things, you just don't know.
yeah,
But once you do it, you're like, that makes sense.
yeah, that's really awesome. Still not going to probably do it, but it puts it in perspective a little bit
Sure.
better. Yeah, but so when you travel, first of all, let me ask you this: how often do you travel nowadays? I guess maybe in the
Not
last.
enough.
None of us do, I'm sure, but
Exactly. Well, I guess it depends. I mean, I travel some for business, but I don't really consider that travel so much because I'm working. And so honestly, I'm seeing the hotel I'm staying at and maybe some, I speak at conferences. So I'm at the conference. Maybe I have a little time to go out and do a tiny bit of sightseeing, but that's more business. For pleasure, I'd say I'm getting out, depending on the year, 2 to 3 times a year. I'm going out on a vacation to go visit someplace.
and how do you? I don't know. I don't usually ask this question. How do you pick a destination like where you're going to go when you get the time to do some travel for leisure?
Um, Again, I've been very fortunate to travel to many places. My girlfriend has not traveled as much, so sometimes we go to places I've been before, or we choose a place that neither of us has been to. And that tends to be a lot of fun. I mean, I love to show places I've been and say, hey, this is really cool. But it's also really fun to both discover what is, some new place.
Yeah, that's excellent. Have you ever done like you take a trip for business and you're like, man, I wish I could spend more time here and then go back?
I've done that once or twice, but a lot of times I didn't have enough of a flavor of where I was going. I was
Sure.
I used to travel a lot more for when I worked in the corporate world, and that honestly was a bit of a grind. And people would be like, "Oh my gosh, you went to Berlin," and I'm like, "Yeah, I saw my hotel, I saw, the office
The
where I was
restaurant down the
doing
road.
work, and I might have seen one or two restaurants, but I can't say I had a flavor for what Berlin was like.
Yeah, absolutely. I get that. That kind of stinks, but it is what it is. I mean, life, it
Yeah.
is what it is. So, well, let me ask you this. This is the point where I always throw out the title of the show, and I'll ask you, and you can say this however you'd like to. You can answer the question however you'd like. Xander Sprague, where have you been?
Well, now I have been to, I believe, in within the United States. I have been to 48 of the states, might be 49 now.
What are you for sure missing?
I think Kentucky. It may be slightly less, but I've seen most of. I've seen. I'm in the mid to high 40s of states. The states that I've seen. So,
It's incredible.
and I've been to Western Europe. I've been to Africa, uh, Morocco, South Africa, Zimbabwe, Botswana, Zambia. I've been to Australia, New Zealand, Fiji, Cook Islands, China.
A lot of places.
A lot of places. Yeah. A lot. Again, I've been very fortunate. I've been able to travel to many places, and I definitely have some favorites.
Well, and that's actually what I don't usually do this, but let's do that. Let's what's one of the favorite places you've been, and tell me some of your experiences there.
All right. So I have to say, top on the list is South Africa.
Okay.
And
Okay.
it is such an incredibly beautiful country. The people are so friendly and nice. And I've gone there. I've seen Johannesburg, Cape Town and the surrounding areas of Cape Town, but I was there to be on safari up on the edge of Kruger National Park. And there is really something so special about seeing these beautiful wild animals in there, just in, as they're living. And I joke that I get dangerously close to animals that could kill me. There is really no chance of that. I should say no chance, but on these private game preserves, they're used to the Land Rover, so they don't see the Land Rover as posing a threat. So as long as you're not an idiot and you just stay seated and stuff, you're totally fine. And I'm not kidding, Bill, I've been like 5 feet away from a pride of lions. And it's a little nerve-wracking, I have to say, because you're like, they could jump up. And I tend to sit in the very back of this open air Land Rover. So I'm the farthest away from the ranger who does have a rifle. And I'm like, by the time he or she picks up that rifle, like it'd be over. But that, honestly, I'm not in fear that that's going to happen. Your brain sort of kicks in and goes, there's 3 lionesses lying right there. I could reach out and touch them. Not going to do it, but if they wanted to, they could jump in, and that would be bad.
How impactful is that to just see these massive creatures and not even
honestly,
massive,
Bill, it really is. It's life-changing, and I've been fortunate to be able to share this with my 2 daughters, who also have a great love of being on safari and being able to appreciate how these animals live. And look, it's not always pretty. It's not always super exciting. One of the stories I like is we came upon a leopard and her juvenile daughter, and they were sleeping. And we're right there. And it was really exciting. But we sat there for about 40 minutes, and I was watching cats sleep, and the excitement sort of passes after about 5 minutes, and now You're just watching cats sleep. However, what did happen was the mother got up, and they had killed an impala a little bit away, and she left, and then she returned, and she climbed a tree that was right next to the Land Rover. I mean, like single-digit feet. And she climbed up the tree with this impala in her mouth, climbed up about 10 feet up the tree. And I'm right there. I have video of it. It's incredible. So it was totally worth just sitting there with these sleeping leopards to watch this thing happen. And had we not been patient, we wouldn't have seen that.
Was she climbing to see what was around the area to make sure it was
climbing
safe?
Up to with the impala to get it off the ground so that they could eat it. Because if it's on the ground, then the hyenas or the lions will come and take it. So even though we know this, and it sounds like no duh, Zander, elephants are really big creatures, and when you're when you're sitting there in a Land Rover. Or I've been on safari walks where you're just walking through the bush, and let me tell you, Bill, every single horror film, every bad story you've ever heard does go through your head.
Every sound has to be like, what?
Yeah, well, there's that. Then there's you come around, and there's a herd of elephants, and you're on foot, and you're like, those are really, really big. And even though we know that, when you just see it in their natural environment, you're like, that is a magnificently large animal.
So we put that to rest. We anybody who thinks elephants are small, get that out of your mind. No, I know. I'm just playing. No, that's incredible, and that's something that it's never really been on my list. But you're not the first. You're probably the 3rd or 4th at least guest that I've had that's done the safaris and just said nobody's ever had a bad word to say about it. So.
Yeah, it is incredible. I don't know. I mean, a friend of mine who's a private safari guide and done my safaris says Africa gets in your heart, and it really does. There is sort of this weird like thing that happens where you just like kind of feel like I'm coming home and this place is so incredible and I just can't get enough. And look, you're getting up at 5 a.m. to go out on a morning drive and you think, oh my God, so early. I can tell you, they knock on the door to wake you up and you were like, I am ready to go. Let's go see animals.
Yeah, I would be jacked. Like as soon as that alarm went off or that knock on the door.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
Is that kind of like the thing that draws you to Africa, or is there more to Africa that kind of is a draw for you? And
I mean, getting to learn about new cultures, new people, how people live, how they do it. And as I said, my experience has been that everybody I've met from South Africa is so very friendly, so willing to share their experience and learn from you. And how can that not be fun when people are excited to see you?
Yeah. And one of the things we touched on this podcast, of course, we've talked about so many things with so many episodes now. But one of the things we've talked about before is, wherever you go in the world, people are so much more similar than you think, even if their circumstances are different and their lifestyles are different, but they're still going through their life day to day. They're still trying to provide for their families. They're still trying to, whether it's make a living or whatever. And they just want, they want human companionship and touch and interaction as much as we do, and just to be respected and whatever. So even though I've heard Johannesburg specifically, I've heard of they have like rolling blackouts and stuff there, right?
Yeah, Johannesburg, I'll be honest, Johannesburg it can be a dangerous place. There is a lot of crime there, but here's what I'll say about that. Like any place that you travel, there are places that you should be and places that you shouldn't be. And as long as you're being smart and you find out, hey, don't go over here, try and stay here, I think you are fairly safe. There are stories which are not just like one-off stories of, people coming up and stealing your cell phone and your jewelry and your wallet, just as you're walking through the business district. And that's not just a one-off story. That does actually happen. But, if you're in a city and you don't know, go on a tour. They're going to try and keep you safe.
Well, yeah, they not just because they want to keep you safe, but they want their reputation, I'm sure, to be that they will keep you safe so that they can continue to do that. So, no, that's awesome. Anything else from like South Africa or that region that
absolutely so I had the opportunity last time I was on safari to sleep out on this elevated platform that they use to train the rangers at this private game preserve called Londolozi.
Wait, how in the heck did that happen? That's incredible.
That happened because my safari guide Warren Pearson used to work there. So he has some ins. And so he had the idea, he asked, he got permission. I have to say I was a little nervous about that. And if I'm honest, a little like, I've got a really comfortable bed back there and you want to camp out.
But immediately, because you said it's an elevated platform, right? Almost like a treehouse, but it's not in a tree.
You're off the ground probably like 15, 20 feet.
Yeah, that's what I thought. So have you ever watched the show The Crown?
Yeah.
Because there was an episode early on, I think it was season 1 or 2, when Elizabeth went to one of those and actually stayed in one of those. So immediately when you said that, that's where my mind goes. So I can visualize it from television.
But this was literally just kind of think of like a tree house that had no house. It was just a platform.
So, no roof or walls or anything.
No roof. No. We were just literally a wooden platform, right?
Oh my gosh! Don't roll over in your sleep.
Oh my God! And I'm again, I'm thinking about like, holy, good Lord, baboons can climb trees. Are we going to be safe? And I thought, well, I'm not going to get any sleep. It's going to be really noisy. It isn't, because the prey animals are out. and the prey doesn't want to make any noise, because that's when, lions and hyenas and all of that are out hunting. So it was unbelievably quiet.
And even
Like,
the
I
hunting
slept
animals
really well.
don't want
I
to make
thought
noise.
there was going to be a cacophony of noise, and there really wasn't. And as I said, the reason for that was because the prey wants to be quiet. They don't want the carnivores to know where they are.
Well, like I said, and even the hunters, they don't want to make any noise either, because they don't want to wake anybody up or whatever and alert them. So yeah. So how did it end up going? You said you actually slept well.
I did. I had a great time. I was happy for the experience. And as I said, sometimes your preconceptions, even if you're not aware of them, get disproved. Another thing in South Africa, and I've talked to other people who've gone there, and this is sort of silly, but I always like to tell the story, which is I went down to the Cape of Good Hope, which is the end of the African continent. And I'm like, oh, okay, here we are. And I didn't think I had like a preconceived idea, but I guess in my mind, I thought it would be sort of like a Monty Python movie, that there would be sort of a tent, red striped tent with like those poles and the streamers up top and Klieg lights and like James Earl Jones as you walk up, the end of the African continent, right? But that's not the way that it is. There's no tents, there's no Klieg lights, there's no announcer. I'm standing on a rocky outcrop looking at technically what is the Indian Ocean and the Atlantic Ocean meeting. But there's no fanfare. I honestly could have been standing on any rocky outcropping next to the ocean anywhere in the world. So it was in some ways underwhelming to see it. And again, I guess I had some expectation that I'm at the end of a continent. There's fanfare, and there isn't.
Yeah, which is funny. What a contrast when you go to Key West and you get to that point that's like the southernmost point of Florida, whatever, or the U.S. even, maybe that is.
Yeah, the U.S.
Yeah, and there's this big, thing there that you can take your picture with. So we make everything a tourist attraction instead of just leaving it alone. Just let it be. This is it.
Yeah.
Pretty cool, actually, in a way. Like, I get it. To not see even like a sign or something, but yeah, I don't know, kind of neat.
Absolutely.
So when was that have you been there more than once?
I have. I've been fortunate to go to South Africa 4 times on safari.
Oh my gosh, wow.
Yeah.
Each time, I guess, maybe not equally. I mean, because I'm sure that there's better safaris and not as good safaris, but all good, though.
Yeah, I mean, we traveled to some other countries like Botswana and Zambia and did some safaring there, and that's different. I have to say, at Londolozi, it's great because it is incredibly game rich. They will never guarantee that you're going to see any of any particular animal, but you have a really good chance of seeing most of the animals that you'd want to see, like lion, rhino, hippo,
oh my god,
elephant, giraffe, African buffalo.
And they kind of give you a list of what's in there before you go.
Yeah, it's easy enough. Nowadays it's easy enough to say what am I likely to see.
Right, okay.
And then obviously there's bazillions of birds and all kinds of other, antelope and other animals that are also really cool to see. And I will be honest, going to South Africa is not inexpensive. However, myself and other people who I've recommended to go to Londolozi, we're not on the actual safari going, I can't believe how much this cost me, Martha. You're just so in awe, and you're like, oh my God, I want more.
But if I'm not mistaken, it's getting there, and then the safaris themselves are not cheap, of course, but everything else is
depending on, look, they're all different levels of lodges and stuff, and you can do things like you can drive yourself through Kruger National Park. The difference is you have to stay on the road, and the animals are not just sitting there on the side of the road most of the time. So you're like, oh, I saw a lion way across the way. Kind of like if you go to the zoo and they have a big lion enclosure and you're like, oh yeah, there's a lion like 300 yards up under the tree, right? That's kind of what the self-drive, whereas on the private game preserves, they're driving you up to the animals or close, not right up to them, but you're getting closer. They're like, oh, let's drive across this field because there's elephants over there.
Yeah. Yeah. Very cool. Very cool. So, okay. Well, so obviously South Africa is one of your favorite places, and that's where we started because of that. What would be another one of your favorite places besides South Africa? Anywhere else that you've been 4 times?
I've been, yeah, I mean, there are places. I would say, I mean, I've been to the Bahamas a lot, and I really I love the Bahamas. Again, people are so friendly. Specifically, I went to Harbor Island, which is just off of North Eleuthera. It's a tiny little island, but it has a 3-mile pink sand beach, which is absolutely spectacular, and great snorkeling and diving and fishing and delicious food. And that's been great. You know, if I take myself over more west, I have to say I've really enjoyed learning more about the Hawaiian Islands. I have not gone a lot, stayed in Maui primarily, but I have been to Oahu and look forward to seeing more, more of the Hawaiian Islands. I got to visit the Cook Islands, which are out in the South Pacific, and that was incredible. It was so pretty.
I don't think I know anything about the Cook. I mean, I've heard of them, of course, but no one's ever mentioned them on the podcast.
Well, look at me. I get to pull out a first. All right. Yeah. So the Cook Islands the main island is Rarotonga. And it's a volcanic island. And I was scuba diving. And as we're there, we're swimming, we're in about 40 feet of water. And then it looked like there was just a little ledge. And the dive master writes on his tablet that it went from 40 feet and drops off to 10,000 feet.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So even though I was completely buoyant in the water, I did sort of have that cartoonish like, whoa. And the other people, we were all like, sort of moving our hands and feet to keep ourselves afloat. Right. And that's just sort of the way, because the volcano, the lava stopped and it just dropped off. So that was really cool. There's also part of the Cook Islands is a place called Atutaki, which is a ring reef. So it means there's a reef around and there's a lagoon inside, and the water is so unbelievably clear that 60 feet down, I could see fish clearly swimming along the bottom and stuff. And it was such a vibrant aquamarine blue that it sort of hurt your eyes without sunglasses. And so that was really special. At some place, I used to have a poster of Atutaki because I was like, this is so beautiful. I just want to remember what it looks like.
That's incredible. And you know what's funny is I actually remember the clearest water I've ever seen, and it wasn't that deep, of course, but when we did the one and only cruise I've ever done, one of our stops was St. Martin, and that was by far, and I have photos as well. I have photos of my kids in the water. It was the most crystal clear. It wasn't blue, it was just clear, but it was so impactful.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's awesome. So, okay, well, let's do that. Actually, you know what I would love to do, if you don't mind, is sure. You have spent some time in Asia, and I don't feel like we talk about Asia enough. So I wonder if you have any really cool stories or experiences anywhere over there.
I've got a funny story about being in Asia.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which is, I was in China for a business meeting, and we had traveled via a bullet train to another city, but we came back to Shanghai, and there was this was like in early October, and there was a typhoon coming through. So we walked back into our hotel, and there was they were having an Oktoberfest, but because it was raining, they couldn't be out in the Oktoberfest tent. So they had moved it all into the lobby. So we walk in from a whole, like this long day of travel on the train and buses and stuff. And there are all these people in lederhosen, and there's, music going, and there's beer and pretzels and stuff. And it was honestly really disconcerting to see a lot of Chinese people in lederhosen and drundles and stuff.
I can't
do things that you just don't expect to see,
Absolutely. Did you shoot photos of that?
I did not take photos of that, but it certainly seared into my mind where I'm like, it just seemed, I don't know,
out
like
of place?
like you just didn't expect to see it. And but that was certainly a lot of fun. I did get to go to Hong Kong right before the handover. I was there in 1996, and that was, Hong Kong is amazing. It is very Western, very finance focused. There's a lot of money that goes there. But then we took a tour of to the I'm not going to pronounce this right, Guangdong province, which was an industrial province, and that was in the People's Republic of China. And that was a really interesting experience, Bill, because it was sort of like doing a Disney tour in some ways, because like they brought us to what was supposed to be a village, but it sort of felt like seeing some of the actors at Disney, because there was a woman washing dishes and a woman washing clothes in a pond that was completely covered with green algae. And I'm like, I don't think you'd really be washing your clothes in that. As she's washing and there's like green algae on it. I'm like, I don't think so.
Right.
And in anticipation of the change in the handover and the economic growth, there were these like industrial parks and like housing apartment complexes, like high-rise apartment buildings, but there was no one there. It was sort of like driving through some post-apocalyptic neutron bombed place where all the buildings were there, but there was no one around. I was like, wow, feels really strange.
Yeah.
And I have no idea what it looks like now, because obviously that was 30 years ago. But that was all in anticipation of the handover and how People's Republic of China was going to utilize the proximity to Hong Kong. And I'm scheduled to go to Japan in the beginning of April, which I'm excited about. I have not been to Japan. I'm really looking forward to that tour.
Yeah, that's going to be awesome. I have not been to Japan either. It's been on my list. We almost got there a few years back and switched gears at the last minute. And we decided to go to South America instead, and which I do not regret a moment of. But I still definitely want to get to Japan at some point. But yeah. Anywhere else that you've been in Asia?
Well, I did a business trip to India.
Oh, okay. But again, with a business trip, you probably didn't have a lot of time to explore.
I didn't. I did find a little time to get around. It was incredibly hot when I was there. I was in New Delhi, and the low for the week I was there was 105, and the high was 115, and that was the day I was out touring around, seeing the Red Fort and stuff like that.
Perfect. Yeah.
Perfect. And always interesting when you travel to make sure you do your research about what is appropriate for you as a tourist to be wearing. I was like, it's going to be really hot. I should wear shorts. And my friend who was from India grew up in New Delhi, It's like, no, you need to be wearing long pants. It's disrespectful to walk around this Red Fort, which is a historical site, in shorts. And I wouldn't have thought of that. But I took that lesson to say, figure out what's appropriate to be wearing.
Yeah. Long white pants probably would be best.
Exactly. Linen is your friend. Yeah. So I think that's important because you do want to you want to make sure you're comfortable, but you also want to make sure that you understand what local customs are, because it's really not good when you decide to wear, your tank top and your dolphin shorts, and that's just not appropriate.
Right. Yeah. And it's not even just what to wear. I think you kind of said it, like it's other customs as well. And we touched on this as well also, but certain cultures don't do handshakes or different things that we just do. Physical touch is not a thing in some countries. And so you could be very offensive and not even realize that you're just trying to be respectful and you're doing the exact opposite. So
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, a little bit of research goes a long way. What was your overall impression, even if it was a short time that you got to actually see and spend the time in India? Because I have had people go both ways with it. I've had people say it was so impactful and I have to go back, and I've gone back multiple times. I've had people say it wasn't for me.
I guess I'll say I don't feel I saw enough of it, but what I did see, there are a lot of people in riding around. We had a microbus that was driving us around to the office and to meals and stuff like that. And I'm 6'2", so I was the tallest person. So I was in the front seat next to the driver.
Eyes closed.
The driving is best described as, I think the general attitude is
controlled chaos.
It will all work out, right? And as we're trying to pull out, and there's just thousands of cars, and our driver just pulls out. Bikes, cars, pedestrians, and he just pulls out. And no one got hit, no cars got hit. And one time we were going down the road, we're doing, 35 miles an hour, and these two women are slowly crossing the street, and we're approaching them. They're not walking faster. The driver isn't driving slower. It's just this inherent belief that it's all going to work out. You don't need to get all upset. Now, I have found that there are places like India where there's only so many times that you can go before you pass out.
That's incredible.
And I had a lot of that where I'm like, oh my God, and everyone else in the back couldn't see it. And they're like, what's the matter? And I'm like, don't worry about it.
You know how close we came to hitting, like over and
exactly.
Over again?
Like he pulled out and there was a truck coming right for us. I was closing my eyes, relaxing for impact, And I do think I think I discovered one of the most challenging jobs in the whole world. I saw this twice. It was a driver's ed teacher in New Delhi.
Oh my goodness.
I was like, wow.
I don't know how well they get paid, but it's unbelievable. I didn't even think about that being a job.
Well, yeah, people got to learn how. People have to learn how to drive. It totally made sense, but when I saw it, I thought, wow, I'm an experienced driver, and I don't want to take this on.
That's incredible. So, okay, well, let's do this. So if you and I are sitting down at a bar having a drink or whatever your beverage of choice is, and we just overhear each other talking about travel, something travel related, and so it just kind of spurs us on, and we go turn to each other and we start sharing stories. What's like the first, if you haven't already told it, but what's one of like the first travel memories or stories or experiences that you have to tell it? I'm sure the safari was definitely part of that.
Yeah, no, safari would be there. I guess one of the stories I would tell was when I was 13, I told you I went to Morocco, and we were in Marrakesh, started off in Marrakesh, and they have the Casbah there. And the only way for you to see that is you have to hire a tour guide, because it is a labyrinth. Had I gone in there without a tour guide, I'm not sure I would have ever come out or seen the light of day again. It was incredible to walk through it, but I was trying to pay attention to, like, where are we going? How many lefts and rights have we taken? But you're taking a lot of quick lefts and rights, and it's really confusing. But that was, I mean, I don't want to make it sound negative. It was just sort of 12-year-old me or 13-year-old me was like, oh my gosh, this is really cool. I'm seeing all these really cool things, rug makers and people making stuff out of metals, bowls and platters and stuff like that, clothes, and the smell of all the different spices and stuff was incredible. But it was a little like, if this tour guide leaves me, I don't know that I can get myself out. Further along on that trip, we were going through the Atlas Mountains, and we were in a bus, and we're on roads that are probably big enough just for a person and maybe possibly like a horse or something. And we're passing, and they were doing a lot of, this is back in 1982. And they were doing a lot of road construction. So there's these like supersized dump trucks, and we're on this little mountain road. And as we're passing these dump trucks, we're on the outside, and I'm on the window of the bus, and I'm looking down hundreds of feet of cliff. And occasionally you saw a car upside down.
Oh no.
And we were so close to the edge, Bill, that I can't see the edge of the road. I really have to believe that with the size of the road, the size of the truck, and the size of the bus, that we had to have at least part of those outside tires hanging in the air.
Oh, man. Yeah, that would be a little frightening.
It would be. And later on in that trip, like the next day after the bus, we were all in like these taxis going out to our final destination, and we come around a corner on this little road, and there's a man and his donkey and us and a big cliff. And I'm like, what's going to go on? Who's not winning this particular game of chicken?
Oh boy.
No one got hurt, but the man did have to sort of step off, and he slipped a little, not far. I mean, like 5 feet down the embankment. But the taxi driver was nerves of steel, was not giving up the road.
Wow. And the donkey made it too.
Yeah, the donkey was fine. Donkey's probably seen it before. It's like, yeah, okay, whatever.
Let me ask you that. Well, first of all, I think it's very cool that even at that age, you have like vivid memories, it sounds like, of that trip. I think it's awesome because I don't have many things when I was 13 that I have vivid memories of. But when you travel for leisure and you go somewhere and you're really exploring and stuff, it sounds like you do kind of make it a point to talk to people. Like you made friends with unless you already knew him, but the safari host there, whatever.
Yeah, he was. I met him when I went on my first safari, and then we've been friends ever since. So
yeah. So is that something you do regularly?
I do. I do like to meet people. I like to get out and just sort of, if I can, walk around, go into shops, talk to people, say hello. I got a story about saying hello to someone and then about 5 days later getting in a lot of trouble in Tasmania in Australia. I was in Australia for a semester of study, and they had extended like spring break. So I went down to Tasmania for a couple of days, and I met this woman on the plane, and she's like, oh, if you ever get out, to this place, make sure to look me up. I'm like, oh, yeah, of course. I find myself, I didn't really think about it, but I found myself in her town, and I came down the first full morning I was there, and I was staying kind of in a bed and breakfast kind of a place. And the owner's like, "You're in trouble." And I'm like, "Oh my God, what did I do?" I was like, I haven't done anything wrong. I didn't come in really late. I wasn't loud. What did I do? And she's like, "Do you remember," and I'm just going to make up a name here because I can't remember her name. "Do you remember meeting Linda?" And I'm like, Linda. I'm like, "Oh yeah, on the airplane." She goes, "Yeah, she lives 2 kilometers up the road, and she knows you're here, and she's really upset that you didn't call her." And I'm like,
What?
"Oh my God." Well,
Wait a minute. How did she know that you were there?
um
Do you know?
well, perhaps I make an impression when people meet me, Bill.
Okay.
Perhaps the god of enthusiasm, as some people have called me, left an impression. And certainly having, my given name is Alexander, but I go by Zander. So Zander's a pretty unique name.
Yeah.
So someone was saying something, and obviously there can't be that many Zanders in Tasmania.
Sure. 6'2" Zanders.
Exactly. And so she's like, so I called her up. I'm like, "Oh my God, I am so sorry." She's like, "Why didn't you call me? You could have stayed with me." I'm like, again, sort of you meet people, and it happens here in the United States where you meet someone, "Oh yeah, if you're ever in town," but we don't really expect them to call us.
Sure. And you don't even know if they mean it. It's just,
Yeah,
they're just being nice.
Exactly. So that's one of those stories of meeting someone who was so very friendly, and she was upset, but then she invited me over, and her husband was a golf fanatic, and they had this little farm, and he had built a 6-hole par 3 golf course, and I play golf, so he was so excited. So I got to play on Tasmania's at this time, only private golf course.
Oh my God. How cool.
Yeah, it was so cool. Who would have thought?
Yeah. And they ended up just being super nice, and
It couldn't have been nicer.
that's awesome. Did you guys do anything more together? Like, did you hang out? Or
I had lunch and dinner with them and just hung out. But then I wasn't, because I was traveling around. I wasn't there. I wasn't there for an extended period of time. I was only really there for about a day and a half.
Okay, gotcha. That's awesome. I love the stories of things like that, because you just never know what's going to happen when you just talk to people. Like, it's so easy, especially on an airplane, to just be like, bury your head in a movie or a book, or throw on some headphones, which makes you unapproachable, and whatever. But I actually had a one trip where we were in Costa Rica, which I've been a number of times, and my wife stayed back. She was staying a little bit longer because we were actually looking for a place to buy, and so she stayed back for another extra 5 or 6 days, whatever. So I flew back by myself. I ended up talking to the guy next to me for the entire flight from Costa Rica to Florida. We exchanged phone numbers. It's been a while, but we've texted each other since, happy holidays or whatever. And
Right.
It's not like we've ever hung out or anything, but you make a human connection. Just, have a conversation.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to be in a foreign place or in an airport or on an airplane or whatever, but it's cool when that happens,
Absolutely is. Never underestimate the power of hello. No matter what.
And sometimes someone just needs that.
Yeah.
You never know. And if they don't, hey, there was no harm.
Exactly. Smile, wave, say hello. It's amazing the doors that open when you say hello, and the experiences that you get to have that you wouldn't otherwise get.
Yeah, and you know what else we haven't? We've mentioned this before, but it's been a long time, and I think it's a good place and time to mention it. Is especially when you go to a foreign country where they don't speak natively English.
Yes.
Learn the basics. Learn hello, goodbye, please, thank you, where are the restrooms? Like, learn the basics. They know that they'll figure out that you're not fluent in their language, but I think they appreciate that little bit of effort,
Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, I know when roles are reversed, I do. When someone when somebody's here, like in my bank or something, and they, try to speak English, we have translation line. We can call it, actually have a conversation through translation. But I appreciate that. You're here and you're making an effort. And so
Absolutely. Another thing that I do just as I'm, walking around when I don't live in a city now, so I don't have the opportunity as much. But when I was living and working in Boston or San Francisco, if I saw someone who was sort of standing there looking at a map, I would always stop and ask if I could help them find someplace. Because I know as a traveler, that's always helpful when someone says, hey, can I help you?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and again, like if you have the time to do it, walk them there. Like you could form a bond, and you could, you just never know what's going to happen. You just never know.
But even if you don't, even if you're
Exactly.
like, yeah, you need to go down to the end of the block and take a left, you just help someone and frankly help them say, hey, this is a friendly place to be. Perhaps
Yes.
you're making a good impression for whatever city you're in.
Absolutely. So you mentioned a place to transition a little bit. You mentioned a place. I'm very excited. I mentioned it a couple episodes back, I think, but the day that this episode is releasing, and so if anyone's listening to it, right away, I should be in New Zealand right now visiting my daughter. So you've been there.
I have.
How much of New Zealand have you covered? And tell me your impressions. I've never heard a bad word about it.
First of all, New Zealand is spectacularly beautiful. I started off on the South Island. My main reason for going is I wanted to go bungee jumping in Queenstown, which I did.
You're nuts.
It was awesome. Here's what I can say about bungee jumping. You know those dreams that you have that you're falling?
I don't know if I've ever had that dream, but I've heard many people talk about it, but yeah.
For those of us who have that dream that you're falling, well, bungee jumping is like that, but it happens again and again and you're awake. It's awesome.
It happens again and again and you're awake. And here's the difference, right? Because you're close enough to the ground that you do have depth perception.
Oh, you absolutely have that feeling of falling. Let me tell you.
It's coming right at you.
It is.
The first jump, did you keep your eyes open? Be honest.
Absolutely. Really? And the funny thing was...
Are you an adrenaline junkie, do you think?
I am an adrenaline junkie, yes.
Crazy.
And the funny thing was...
crazy.
I did it 163 and a half feet. I did not dunk my head because it was the middle of winter and it's glacial runoff and that's really cold. And I was like, no, thank you. But I came 6 inches above the water. I got done, bouncing up and down. They hand you a pole. They pull, they pull you down. They undo you. And then you walk/sprint up this path. So I get up there and
you sprinted. You loved it.
Yeah. Well, no, but here's the thing, Bill. You have so much adrenaline pumping through your system that you literally can't help yourself. Like you got to burn all this adrenaline off, right? So I get up there and I paid for I had them videotape my jump and then they do a little interview. And I look like some kind of a crazed lunatic. My eyes are all wild. My voice is I'm like, oh my God, that was great. Because all the adrenaline and stuff, I was sort of half out of breath, trying to catch my breath while I was talking. And I'm gesticulating wildly because I have so much adrenaline pumping through my system. I'm like, oh my God, that was great. She's like, would you do it again? I'm like, absolutely. And, but New Zealand, the South Island is so beautiful. They film many, many films there. Most famously, they film Lord of the Rings and stuff. And it is, I'm not a huge Lord of the Rings, fan. I've seen the movies. I really appreciated knowing that was New Zealand and saying, yes, that really is as rugged and beautiful as it is. I then took a train from Christchurch up to the very north end of the South Island, got on a ferry and took the train all the way up to Auckland. And so that was a really cool way to see a lot of the countryside and met a lot of really interesting people on the train. And that was a lot of fun.
Have you spent, just curiosity, did you spend any time in Wellington? That's where I'll be primarily.
I did not get to Wellington, but it's just so beautiful. I
Yeah.
mean, no matter where you are, there is lots and lots of open space.
Let me ask you another question. Um, how many times have you, if you don't have to obviously pinpoint it, but have you made a connection with someone in another place and actually, even if it didn't last until today, but had a connection with someone that you actually kept in touch with them? Like, I know that years ago it wasn't as easy. So you're traveling in the 80s, 90s, even maybe late 90s, early 2000s. The social media stuff didn't really take off as much. Well, late 90s maybe, but it's kind of when it started. But that was like MySpace, and that's gone.
Yeah.
I guess in the last 20 years or so, like, how many times have you met someone and made a connection and actually still talked to them after you came home?
Uh, Through all my travels, I'd have to say there's probably 8 or 10 people that I will stay. I've stayed in contact. I may, it may have been just for 5 years or whatever.
Yeah, life happens, but I just was
It
curious.
does.
It's easier now because you can let me follow you on Facebook or Instagram, and
Yeah,
maybe
so
once in
much
a while
easier.
you
But
like
I'm
a
talking
post.
about meet someone and I'm writing letter,
Yeah,
airmail letters and
my
stuff
God,
like that. And
that's
some people, wrote to them for a bit, fell off, and then through social media, all of a sudden they're like, "Hey, do you remember
no way.
Way?"
That's really cool. That's really cool because I mean, how many people did that even like to go back that far and to actually write people handwritten letters, and then yeah, you stop
Well,
after a while.
how else am I going to communicate with someone? I wasn't like, hold on, let me just do phone calls,
Oh
to,
sure,
you know,
$300.
exactly, over to Europe or New Zealand or whatever. But then, yeah, and then through social media, how, again, sometimes you just get curious and go, I wonder if, you know, there was one person I'd met in the Cook Islands who had just got curious and thought, I wonder if, you know, Zander Sprague is on Facebook, and lo and behold, there I was, and reconnected.
I think that's awesome. Have you ever
Yeah.
like actually gone and seen somebody again besides the safari person?
No, not yet, but certainly I've had
Could happen.
people. I've had people who came to the United States and specifically reached out and said, "Hey, I'm going to be in, wherever. I'm going to be in your city. Love to get together." And always, you know, I have to say, most times fun. Sometimes 20
Awkward.
minutes in, you're like, we have completely run out of things to say.
Yeah. Wow. Still, I love it. I love it so much. I have this thing with human connection that I just really love, and I think it needs to be explored more, and I think it needs to be taken advantage of more. And I mean everybody across the board, and not just travel, but I think travel just exacerbates it and really makes it so much more. And I think that when we have that human connection with people, it just, I don't know, man. We kind of touched on it already. Like, it creates experiences and stories and things that you couldn't possibly have if you just kind of shell up and just go and kind of tunnel vision, and you go to see your
It,
sites and go back to the hotel and
Go to the museum, go to the whatever. Here, I've got an insight for you. Actually pointed out by my daughters when I took them to Europe, and I set up like all kinds of, like I went through a travel agent, so we had tour guides and stuff, and that was awesome. But as we were we went to Holland, and then we were in Paris, and then we went to Malta, and Malta's a great place. But as we're
tell me about it when you're done with this story. I know
I
nothing.
will, I will. And so as we were going into the umpteenth church, right?
Oh,
My
the
daughter
church's
said,
cathedrals. I mean,
yeah,
oh,
cathedrals, and they're beautiful.
oh my God, yes.
But my older daughter said, are churches and museums the only thing to see in Europe? And I thought about that, and I was like, wow, that is how Americans go. We talk about going to the museums and talk about going to the churches, cathedrals, whatever. And they are beautiful. But there is so much more to Europe. There's, thousands of years of history. Like, get out of the cathedrals, go see some other stuff. Malta, honestly, Bill, cannot recommend for such a small geographic place. There is a ridiculous amount of awesome history there.
Is it even bigger than Rhode Island?
Probably not much bigger than Rhode Island.
It's very small.
Honestly, it is really small. However, and I was a history major, so I'll admit to like geeking out on this stuff. But there is honestly like 5,000 years worth of history. There are these stone, I'm trying to think of what kind of rock it is, a limestone kind of Stonehenge kind of construction that are built to align with the solstice. So these temples that were to align for the solstice. And these were built like something like 500 years before the pyramids in Egypt.
Oh my God.
There is the island of Goza, which is where supposedly in the Odyssey, that's where the sirens called Ulysses they lured him to the island. That's Goza. There are still used today sea salt creating pools, right? They were built by the Romans and they're still used today where the seawater comes in and then it dries out and they make it sea salt. They have there's a Roman catacomb that you can go into. There's unbelievable history of going further up of beautiful cathedrals and walled cities and beautiful lagoons and just so much history.
I feel like I need to get there now. Like this is the
really
one.
do.
It's one of the negatives. It's probably the only negative of doing this as a pastime or a hobby here is my bucket list has grown immensely in the last 10 months. It's incredible. But isn't it also incredible? Like, even with all of the science and technology that we have today, I don't know how long it would take me to build something that was focused around the solstice and the way the sun moves and have like this very artistic designed whatever that when you on this time of day on this day of the year you're going to see this beautiful the sun's going to come right through this hole.
The sun is coming through this little hole that's going to hit right here and more importantly, how did they figure out how to move these limestone enormous, like 12-foot high, thousands of pounds?
Right. And
how did they come up with how to move these and then erect them?
Absolutely. And that's why like the pyramids blow me away. I've never been there. I've never seen them, but just the idea of them just blows me away. But I think that's why when I go to Europe and these other places, that's why the cathedrals are such a draw for me. Is it's like they're so ornate, they're so beautiful, and when you see like the spires and the statues and the whatever, and they're almost identical. Every single one of them is identical. They didn't have molds. I don't think maybe they did, but I don't know how that was possible. And how do they erect this thing that goes so far into the sky to try to give glory to God? It just is mind blowing. And I'm not a very religious person. I believe in God just for what it's worth, but I'm not a very religious person. But the cathedrals themselves are I love going to them.
Absolutely, and they are. And the paintings that are inside are incredible. So I don't want people to think I'm not saying don't go to cathedrals. Please do. But there is really so much more for you to see than going to museums and cathedrals. You can spend all of your time and have a delightful time, but there is so much more. Like, get out to Versailles. The castle itself is fine, but the gardens are phenomenal, just unbelievable. I think that the gardens of Versailles are frankly better than the castle.
Wow. That's something. Yeah, that's very, very cool. Listen, so I hate to say this. There's so many places we haven't even touched on yet. We're
Right?
getting kind of close to where we should probably get to the final 5 questions, but I'm not really in any rush. But I want to be mindful of your time as well. What are the, if you can possibly pick a couple more places, a couple more stories, experiences, something that was really impactful for you, something that happened to you that was just absolutely hilarious, can't believe it happened, or even if you have anything else that besides driving in India that was like, oh my God, I'm going to die. Anything like that you can share, or anything you want to share before we get to those final 5 questions.
Um, well, that's a good question. All right, I'll tell this story. I was driving across the country with my older sister for my senior year of college, and we kept seeing these signs in Oklahoma along the I-40, and that I was like, well, they're up there for a reason. It said, don't drive on the median. And we're like, ha, 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 who's driving on the median?
Right.
And don't drive through smoke. All right, thank you. I mean, there was no smoke around, but, clearly the sign, sign's up there for a reason. So we stopped to see a friend of my sister's from college, and then because I had to make it to California for registration, we had to drive through the night from Oklahoma City to Gallup, New Mexico, and we as we're driving, my sister is driving the car, and I will say this about my older sister Lucy. She was an okay driver, not a great driver. And as we're driving, all of a sudden she finds herself just outside of Gallup, Amarillo, Texas. We're on the median. We're doing about 75 on the median. And I'm in a car that I just had for 3 weeks. It was a 1987 Volkswagen Jetta, power nothing. And on the inside, I'm freaking out. But I'm like, all right, just like get back on the road. So when we get back on, she pulls to the right to get back onto the road. And we then shoot across the 2 lanes of I-40. Thank God a truck or a car wasn't coming. And now we're on the other side going through a ditch, and it's dark and it's bouncy, and I'm just waiting for the car to roll because we're now sliding sideways because it was a standard car and she'd stalled the car out, which turned out to be a good thing. And I have no idea. On the outside, I'm like, it's okay. Just put on the brake. Don't slam it on. Just put on the brake. On the inside, I'm like, you're going to ruin my car. I am really upset. So we come to a stop, and I'm like, are you okay? She goes, yes. I'm like, okay. And I'm like, all right, let me get in the car, because she's like really shaken up. And I get the car off, back onto the road, and I'm driving. Surprisingly, the car is not out of alignment. The only damage to it was a little plastic piece, kind of a mudguardy thing, was coming off. I pulled over about a mile down the road to a rest stop. A nice trucker gave me his knife so I could cut it off. And I made my sister get back in the car and drive for another couple hours, because I'm like, if I don't, she'll never drive a car again. But I was like, wow, I was asleep when we went on the median. And I'm like, well, I guess we're the reason that sign, don't drive on the median's there.
Well, first of all, would she take offense, or would she be like, no, yeah, he's right?
Well, she's dead, so I don't know that she could take offense.
Lucy, oh my God, I'm sorry.
Anyway, no, it's all good, Bill. It's all good. No, I don't think she would take offense. We did laugh about it, for years. How
she's laughing now.
She took the Jetta off-roading, and good German engineering. There was nothing wrong. So
did she say like what happened? Like did she start nodding off, or did it just was there something about
honestly,
that road?
She didn't know. I think I don't know that she nodded off. It could have just been sort of that, she just sort of mesmerized. We were just on a straight road, right? So if you're not really having to turn the wheel much, I think she just sort of maybe pulled a little to the left, and then when she got onto, the wheels got onto the grass, we lost a little traction.
That's incredible. I hope that like maybe they've made advances in. I know that they have made advances in how they paint roads and stuff now. Like the paint is different. There's more reflective material and whatever. But that's incredible to know that there's an issue and just be like, here, let's just put up a sign. It's like those
Yeah,
signs that
exactly.
you see driving another road. It's like bump. It's like, well, just fix the
Yeah.
damn bump. Don't put a sign up. Fix the bump.
Well, it's kind of like going up to Maine. Right after you get into Maine, there's a sign that says "Drive Alert." Well, the only person that's relevant for is the father of four who's driving up from New Jersey, who's like half asleep in lane 3. Like, if you could read the sign, then you're driving alert.
Yeah, right. It's very
They
true.
have another sign that says, "Are your brakes safe?" Really? On a freeway, you want to, oh, Jesus, Martha, I better test the brakes.
Right, right. Oh, I didn't think about that.
Yeah, exactly.
And I'm so glad that sign says be alert. I wasn't even thinking. I was just gonna, watch a TV show while I'm driving
Yeah, exactly.
or listen to this podcast. But this is, hopefully we're not putting you to sleep. Just, and if we are, change it. Listen to something else. Maybe I should pop in some rock music or something in the middle as like an intermission.
Exactly.
Okay. Did you say exactly? Are you agreeing with me that I'm putting people to sleep?
No, not at all. Maybe my stories are too long, and people are like, get to the point.
No, no. Listen, and this is something you and I didn't discuss this ahead of time, but I have definitely told people before. Like, the best problem I can have is if like you and I talked for an hour and a half and we got through 3 stories, because
Yeah.
that means it was so detailed and so important and so meaningful, and that you have so many detailed memories of it. That's the best. That's the best.
Yeah.
I've had people say like, "Oh, I'll just be brief." I'm like, "No, no, no, don't be brief. Don't be brief." But okay, but in the interest of time, let's jump into the final 5 questions. I tell everybody, if take as long as you'd like and be as detailed as you can with the answers. That's great. And if you think of something else that you're like, oh, I got to tell you this, please feel free.
All righty.
Okay. Do you know these questions? Have you heard them?
No, nope.
Okay. Excellent. Question number 1. And we didn't really talk about food. I know you'd mentioned some. I think you mentioned a place or two where the food was good. Maybe, I don't know. It's been a very fast hour and a half, but it's
It has.
I forget some things. So, of all the places in the world, and I phrase this very carefully, of all the places in the world that you've ever been, where was the most memorable meal experience, and what was it outside of wherever you were living? And you can pick one or two.
Okay. I one of the most memorable. We were in, surprisingly, South Africa, and we were staying in a guest house, and we had impala lasagna. Now, for those of you who don't know, impala is sort of a antelope deer type animal that they're kind of like the pigeons of the veld. You're really excited to see them the first hour of your first safari drive, but then you see them all the time, so it's just not a big deal. Anyway,
can I just say, like, the first thing that popped in my head when you said South Africa was I was thinking in my head I should make a joke about that leopard that had the impala in the tree. And I thought, no, I'm not going to interject and say that because that's kind of stupid. And here you are.
Here I am making jokes about the impala, but they really are like the pigeons of the veld. They're just everywhere. You're really excited, and then you're like, oh yeah, impala. Okay, what's next? But so the impala lasagna, I wasn't really sure about it, but it was so delicious, so yummy.
And like, where was that? Where did you have that?
That was in a guest house in South Africa, and I'm desperately trying to, I know it begins with an N, but I can't for the life of me pull up the name of where the guest house was.
You'll remember in about 10 minutes.
Of course I will.
But no, that's incredible.
Nelspret, there you go.
There it is. All right. You're probably one of the few people outside of South Africa that can say you've had impala.
Exactly.
I'm one of the few people outside of Peru that can probably say I've had guinea pig. So, yeah, there we go. Maybe not in the same level, but okay.
No,
Is there another, like, or is that like that's the one?
That would be the one.
Okay, excellent. And is it just? I mean, is it just lasagna? It's just
It was
made,
just lasagna, but
with empanada.
it was not, yeah, it wasn't gamey. It was so delicious. It was really surprising, and we all had seconds. We were like, oh my God, that was delicious. That was so good. And we still talk about, oh my God, to have some Impala lasagna would be great.
It's not like you can just get a Stouffer's, unfortunately.
Not really.
No. Okay, so moving on to question number 2. This is probably my favorite question, and it's a tough one. Of all the places in the world that you have ever been, even if I was to say to you, Zander, here's a free trip, take your family, whatever, that you would say, no, thank you. I'm not going back.
I'd say Fiji.
Okay.
And the reason I say, the reason I say Fiji is, the Fijians are very nice. There's a very large population of Indian immigrants, and the whole caste system when I was there in 1990 was very much in, like, was sort of, I don't want to say enforced, but it was there. And so it, for me, was really hard to see that there was an opportunity for people, and it wasn't even, and the Fijians were affected by this. And so I didn't see as much opportunity for their own advancement, and that made me sad.
Yeah. How was the landscape and just being there? Like, how was Fiji as just a place?
It is beautiful. You're in the South Pacific, and maybe things have changed again. That was 30 years ago, but that was my young 20s experience.
Yeah.
So
if you found that things have changed and I offered you a free trip, you might still go back.
Yeah, I might still go.
Yeah. Excellent. That's a first time answer again. So very good. As a matter of fact, I think that's the first time Fiji's been mentioned as well. So excellent. Best guest ever.
Thank you.
I no disrespect to anybody else. So, okay, number 3, we will flip it. So, of all the places in the world that you have ever been, where are the 1 or 2 places, if you could only, let's say you have, 6 months left to live, unfortunately. So you've got 2 trips left, 1 or 2 trips left. Where are the 1 or 2 places that you have already been that you absolutely have to go back to?
Well, I believe we know what my number 1 would be.
Pretty sure
that would be South Africa. And then where else would I go? Oh, that's a tough one. I might go back to Australia because I didn't get to see nearly enough of it.
Yeah, another place that just like New Zealand, maybe not quite to the level. It's almost like a 1A and a 1B. Like everyone that's mentioned Australia has been like, yep, gotta go back or gotta go. Beautiful, beautiful place, super friendly people. So yeah, I don't blame you. And actually the bonus for me, not that you asked, but so my daughter who lives in New Zealand, I've mentioned this before, sorry people, but she and her boyfriend had planned on moving in May of this year to Spain, which was exciting for me because A, I've never been to Spain, and B, it's much cheaper to get to Spain than to get to New Zealand. Mm-hmm. And Christmas Day, as we're passing the phone around and saying Merry Christmas on FaceTime, it comes out that they changed their mind and they're moving to Australia. So bonus, still expensive to get to, but I get to go see Australia at some point when my daughter's there. So yeah.
That's great. Where's she going in Australia?
I don't know that they have a place nailed down, but they're considering being either in or very close to Sydney.
Yeah, I studied just outside of Sydney. That's great place.
Yeah. Any tips or thoughts about like what to do if you're around Sydney?
Well, again, keep in mind this is 30-year-old information and stuff. Definitely get to like Bondi Beach. If you have a chance to get out into the Blue Mountains, it is beautiful. And one of the great things about Australia, also South Africa, is because there are not that many people, there's not that much light pollution, and you really get to see the celestial sky, and it is awe-inspiring and humbling. Makes you feel really quite small.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love things like that. That when you are there in the moment, you're really truly there in the moment because there's just no choice.
Yeah, yeah. I was out kind of like at a sheep ranch at the beginning of my program, and I walked outside, and I have to say I've never seen blackness like this, where like 5 feet off the porch, absolutely, there was like no light. It was so dark, and I looked up, and there were so many stars. Like I had a hard time finding the Southern Cross, and that's the most prevalent celestial body in the Southern Hemisphere. It's supposed to be really easy, kind of like the North Star. And I saw so many shooting stars, and I was in awe at how Copernicus and Galileo were able to actually pick out the all of the celestial bodies that we know, because I'm like, how did they pick them out? There's just a gazillion stars. Mm-hmm. So it, as I said, really made me feel like, as important as I think I may be, I am but a grain of sand on a hair of a fly. Just incredible.
Yeah, it's really difficult to put into words. You are very important, Zander, by the way.
Well, very thank important. You. But you understand what I mean. Like,
of course.
You're like, oh, look at me. And then you look up and are like, there's a bazillion stars there,
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, I don't have that point of reference. I haven't been to a place that's like that. I've lived sort of like out in the country, so to speak. I'm doing air quotes, not that you can see them. And yeah. I can tell you from living in Pittsburgh or in the suburbs of Pittsburgh, living out like in the countryside, whatever, is completely different. And I remember definitely nights of just sitting in the backyard and just looking up, because it's mind blowing.
Yeah, but even then, like if you are in Australia, you get outside of the city, not even that far, but you get outside, there's so few people actually living in Australia that there's not that light pollution, and you're all of a sudden you're like, wow, what I saw from my back porch at home, which was great, is pales in comparison. So
yeah, I was gonna say, like, I can't imagine multiplying that, and that's what you're saying is essentially. So yeah, very, very cool. Okay, so question number 4 is probably a tough one for you as well. Of all the places in the world that you have never been, if you, again, 6 months or so, like this is it, where are those 1 or 2 places that you've never been that you absolutely have to go?
I'll say Tanzania / Kenya and Maldive Islands.
Why is that?
Because I was watching The Reluctant Traveler, and the Maldives look absolutely spectacular, and I would love to see that.
Is that The Reluctant Traveler? Is that what's his name from?
That's Eugene Levy.
Yes. I haven't. I've seen like part of one episode, but I definitely need to watch that.
He's
incredible,
brilliant. Not that all the seasons aren't good, but the first one is, if I may say, epic. It's just it's awesome. He goes, it's great. Highly recommend it.
Yeah, definitely want to watch. And again, I love him as just a human being. So
absolutely
excellent. So, and side note, and not the same. Okay, but for some reason this just popped into my head, and it's old, but it stands the test of time. Have you ever seen Idiot Abroad?
No.
An Idiot Abroad it was a BBC thing or Sky or whatever it was, but it's Ricky Gervais and what's his name? Steven. I can't think of his name, but you'd recognize him if you saw him, I'm sure. And they send this guy who hates anything outside of his comfort zone, hates the travel, hates whatever. And they're paying him good money, so they make him do all these different things. And Pilkington, I think, I can't remember his name, But my goodness, first of all, you learn a lot because they really get him into the cultures of the places that he goes to. And you can tell there's times he's having fun, but there's also times that he's just super uncomfortable. And it's just hilarious. And if Ricky Gervais is involved, it's going to be great. So I highly recommend anyone to check out An Idiot Abroad. The first season, again, was the best, but they have a few. So
yep.
The final question I have for you is an easy one because you know the answer, and you told me one of the answers already, but maybe you have more. Where are you going? What's in your plans for the next year or so?
I'm going to Japan with my mom, 85 years old and still super adventurous. Yay, Mom. And I'm going to Baltimore for a conference, but I don't really count that. And aside from that, I'm talking about where else I might travel, but I haven't come up with anything quite yet.
All right. Well, that's awesome. This, honest to goodness, has been so much fun. I knew that we were going to have fun from meeting you to begin with, but this has exceeded my expectations. Is there anything else you'd like to...
It's been so much fun. I love to tell my travel stories.
Yes, and you're a good travel storyteller, and it was a lot of fun to listen to them. And again, he didn't touch on so many places that you've been. And I would love to do this again, maybe like a year down the road. We can do like a second episode to just see, like, maybe touch on places we didn't talk about and, where have you been since.
Would be great.
And that would be a lot of fun. So anything you'd like to say or add or just note before we actually hit stop?
Yeah, I would just like to remind people that epic choices lead to the epic life that you want. And there are so many epic destinations out there. So don't be afraid to just say yes.
So well said. Just say yes. Just do it. Just book it. Just do it. Yep. So awesome. Thank you so much, Zander. And enjoy the rest of your night. I'm probably getting towards dinner time for you. So enjoy whatever you have going on. And this has just been really fantastic. And everyone check out what Zander has going on. Please go to the YouTube. I'll have everything in the show notes. And that's it. So, take care, man. Thank you.
You bet. You too.
And there's another episode of the Where Have You Been podcast in the books. Thank you so much for listening today. It was another great guest with some great stories, as always. And I hope that you will support all of the guests by checking out the show notes and going to their web pages, seeing any socials and projects that they may have going on. And please, again, I'll ask as always to like, subscribe, rate, and review the podcast. It really does help to allow the podcast to grow and reach more people, and I appreciate you for doing that. Also, if you haven't done so, check out the website, whybpodcast.com, where you can find blog posts. If you'd like to be a guest, please register to be a guest on the site, and check out the merch page. There's some really cool stuff if you're interested in representing the pod, along with some other cool travel items and apparel that I'm working on every day as well. Join me again next week for another great guest with more incredible stories. New episodes drop every Sunday just after midnight Eastern Time. Until then, thank you for being here, and have a great day.